Welcome everyone to AGI's GeoWebinar series. My name is Leila Gonzalez and I'll be moderating today's GeoWebinar series for our Geoscience Currents discussion today. Today we'll be hearing from Dr. Tom Hoish from Northern Arizona University, and he's going to be discussing his recent Geoscience Currents student perceptions of geology and implications for choosing among different science majors. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the slides over to Tom. So Tom, when you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and change the presenter over to you, and you can take the presentation away.
Okay. So thank you for all attending my webinar sponsored by AGI. We ran a survey of 783 students during the spring 2008 and 2009 semesters, because we wanted to understand from the students what might potentially inspire them to major in geology. We put a lot of students through our introductory classes. About 600 students per semester take our introductory geology classes. Some 51% are freshmen and 30% are sophomores. And when we ask them whether they agree or disagree with "I will not change my major before I graduate," 47% answered something other than strongly agree, meaning that 53% are at least somewhat uncertain about their choice of major at that point. That suggests to us that there is considerable recruitment potential into our geology program from these classes. However, over the years, very few students have been recruited from these classes, and we wanted an answer to why that was the case. It seemed difficult to explain when there are so many appealing characteristics of geology, including high employment potential and high salary. So we conducted these surveys with answering that question in mind. This was an exploration of how students make their decisions of choosing major, the attitudes and perceptions that lead to that, and in particular science-inclined students and their perceptions of the sciences. So we conducted these surveys in 3 different classes: Introduction to Geology, Physical Geology, and Geologic Disasters. As I mentioned, there were 783 respondents. We did this during fall 2008 and spring 2009. We also queried the data set, and I should say there were some 127 questions. It was a fairly comprehensive survey. It took about 25 minutes for the students to complete. And based on these questions, we were able to determine that about 55 of those 783 were potentially recruitable. We considered them to be recruitable if they said that they would consider majoring in a science, would consider changing their majors, and were not afraid of the math, chemistry, or physics requirements of the geology degree program. Now, this 6.9% is a relatively small number, but 55 students is a relatively large number. So we were encouraged that we found a large number of recruitable students. So one of the questions we asked is, what is your minimum salary expectation upon graduation? And we offered the students 7 different choices, which you can see down here. Category 1 is less than 30,000. Category 2 is 30,000 to 39,999, and so forth. And then we asked them how much they thought a biologist with a bachelor's degree would make, and how much a chemist with a bachelor's degree would make, and so forth. You can see the results here. And you can see that the students thought that physicists made the most, that chemists were approximately the same, although the average is a little less, and so forth, with geologists actually coming in basically a 2-way tie for the lowest salary expectation And I should point out these are means and t-tests. Using the t-test here because this is the appropriate test to see if means of normally distributed populations are significantly different. Now, when you compare the student expectations of salaries to the actual data from 2009, I thank Leila Gonzalez for providing these data here. You can see that this is really, the student perceptions are highly inaccurate, with geologists actually making the most, not the least, as they thought. Biologists making the least, not in the middle, as they thought, and so on. And this was a red flag. This is a red flag for recruitment. There is a misunderstanding, at least among our introductory students, concerning salary potential. We also asked them how difficult they thought the majors were. And once again, we have means and t-tests shown here. And you can see that the students rated physics the most difficult, geology and environmental science the least difficult, and chemistry also on the more difficult side, biology in the middle. Once again, we asked the students to rate from extremely difficult, which was category 1, up to category 5, which was not difficult at all. Now, if you compare this to the previous slide, you will see that the majors indicated as not very difficult are the ones that are indicated as being very low paying. And those indicated as most difficult are the ones indicated as highest paying. And the one in the middle, biology, is indicated as being middle paying. So there's a very strong correlation here between the pay and the salary, or the difficulty and the salary expectations. We also asked them their view of prestige of these 5 sciences, biology, chemistry, and we asked this and so forth, and we asked this in 2 different ways. We asked about the occupation, we asked about the department here at NAU, their view of these. And once again, we see correlations where we see physics having high prestige. There is somewhat of a decoupling between the department and the occupation. This is the only one that decouples, but chemistry here also high in prestige, and this group of data here is environmental science and geology, lowest in prestige. So we see further correlation here between perceptions of prestige, difficulty, and salary expectation. Now, one of the things we did on the survey is we did actually perform statistical correlations between these things, and the correlations bear this out as well. That is contained within our in-press paper, Ocean-Buoy in-press. I will give that reference at the end. These are the conclusions to be drawn. Geology is perceived to be low in prestige and low in difficulty and low paying relative to biology, chemistry, and physics. That this is the student's perception. It is not an accurate perception. It's actually highly inaccurate. Student occupations are perceived to pay less than students' minimum salary expectations. Student perceptions of prestige, difficulty, and pay are significantly correlated, with students tending to associate higher pay with greater prestige and difficulty. The misperceptions are a problem for recruitment. We view this as a problem because our survey found that pay and prestige were actually important in the decision-making process for students in deciding a major. NAU's most popular science major, biology, is perceived to be of intermediate difficulty prestige, and biology occupations to be intermediate in pay. So it seems that is the characteristic of a major with a high popularity. We pose in this study that recruitment may be aided by providing information to students that corrects the misperceptions, such as accurate salary data, and that is contained in this Geoscience Currents 36 and also the Geoscience Currents 24, and also to lead students to have a higher and more realistic expectation of the difficulty of a geology degree program. I'm going to conclude with a plug here that if you are interested in conducting a study of this type at your institution, if you would get in touch with me, we are considering extending this study to other institutions. This is the reference that I've cited. It contains considerably more information that is presented here. This is being published in the May issue of Journal of Geoscience Education. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Tom. And I'm going to go ahead and take the slides back here. And there we go. We do have a couple questions coming in, and also for those of you attending, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in the question box, and we'll ask them to Tom here. This is a really fascinating study that you've done, Tom, and very illuminating into what students are thinking about geology careers. And some of the questions that we're getting are related to some of the reasons behind maybe the answers to some of those questions on the survey. As you said you had about 25 minutes of survey that the student had to fill out, so there were a lot of questions. One of the questions that we've got here is, was there any follow-up with the students or the faculty to determine in what way students perceived that geology and environmental science was more difficult than the other sciences? Was it the prerequisites? Was it the geology-specific curriculum? Was it going out into the field? Was there any insight into why they thought it was such a difficult major? Oh, I'm sorry, least difficult. I'm sorry about that, yeah.
This is very puzzling, and we don't have an answer, and it's one we'd very much like to have an answer to. But one of the things that we found, we did ask a series of questions asking them influences on their major, and some of the strongest influences are courses that they had taken prior to coming to NAU, and that includes courses at community colleges and in public school, also family and friends. There appears to be a culture of misinformation about this particular subject out there. They appear to come to NAU with those perceptions already in place. And that's, I'd very much like an answer to that question myself.
Okay.
A good question.
And then we've got another one, again, getting at that, trying to understand where the perceptions of the prestige was, and I guess that follows on with the perceptions of the difficulty or lack of difficulty that geology has. And so I guess to answer the prestige question, it would also be there's a lot of misperceptions already there, so their information is coming more from the communities before they get to college, correct?
Before they get to NAU, and that oftentimes, at least for us, includes courses taken at other universities, because many of our students are transfer students.
Okay.
But we haven't parsed it down to that level as to where that misinformation is coming from. The fact is, we just don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got one other question about strategies for recruitment, because you talked about in this talk, you did discuss that there is definitely this population of students that could be recruited. After looking at the results, were there any specific targeted strategies that really came out of the data that said this would be important? Like, for example, if you had a course where perhaps the teachers took one day and presented about careers in geology, or had a presentation, or maybe they did outreach, or any activities, any ideas for activities that could help to encourage that recruitment into the major?
Yes, we do have some ideas about what to do, and one is to correct the misperceptions with accurate information.
Okay.
So I think it would be important to present to the students, here is the accurate salary picture, here's the data. And there are other, and I do think the way to approach this, and this actually comes out of the University of Southern Georgia because they've been doing this for a number of years, where a guest speaker comes in and provides a talk, which is basically a recruitment talk, but it provides information about the about becoming a geoscientist or in that particular department they did geography as well. And to target those things that we know matter to students, one of which is salary, another which is outdoor activities, another which is environmentally friendly employment, and there's another is travel, another is outdoor activities. And we found that these are important to a very large number of students. So, and they are influential factors that are part of what we do as geoscientists. So these are attractive things, and I think the approach that is falling out of this is to go about it that way. We have not tested it, however.
Okay. And then we've got another question asking about extension of the study and how to get involved. I know people were saying that you put a slide up there giving your contact information. Is there any other information about how you're planning to extend this in the future for this study or broader impacts?
If people, or if you would like to conduct a study at your own institution, get in touch with me and I will provide you with some more information. One of the things we don't know is whether the population studied at Northern Arizona University is typical. And this is one of the questions we want to answer. And it's my personal view that the target groups will be different at different institutions for a variety of reasons, and recruitment strategies may be developed that are tailored for that particular, for the characteristics of that particular target group. I'd be very interested in working with people at other institutions to conduct those kinds of studies.
Okay, I think that answers our list of questions for today. For the participants, if you have any questions that weren't answered today, or if you watch this again, because we will be posting this webinar on our GeoWebinar webpage, if you watched again and have more questions, you can go ahead and email them to us at workforce@agiweb.org, and we will be sure to forward them on to Tom so that he's got those questions and can get back to you. And Tom, thanks again for presenting today. This was a great presentation. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And so we're going to go ahead and conclude our webinar for today. And like I said before, you can visit our GeoWebinar website at AGI. It's www.agiweb.org/workforce/webinars.html. That link is here at the bottom of the screen. And you can view this webinar as well as upcoming webinars and also previous webinars that we have posted on the site. And we want to thank everybody for attending, and this will conclude our webinar for today.